Hi, folks. Welcome to this first podcast for Black Country Coaches Club, looking for content ideas, general chat for coaches across the Black Country. And today, our first one is a bit of a introduction to what we do and why, some update on what does this mean in the world of coaching and education, but also, things to be more aware about with COVID and how it's affected young people and how that might affect your coaching when we come back from lockdown 2.0. Joining me is my host with the most for tonight is Aaron. Aaron Hall, say hello.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
We're all good. And Aaron is a coach himself, coaches at Halzo in town. And Aaron has been handed the task today to ask some questions, to link in and kind of get our conversation flowing of our themes that we've introduced. So I'm going to shut up for a sec, Aaron. I'm going to hand over to you, and you are the man with the questions. Let's go.
Thanks, Russ. Thanks very much. Russ, I was just wondering if you could firstly talk to me about the Black Country Club. If you could just tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, no problem. So effectively, during lockdown, there's been a lot of changes, which I'll talk about a little bit more later with the FA and coach education and coach support. But one of the things that's been consistent with the work that I do over the last kind of 15, 20 years is that coaches, when they work in isolation, aren't as connected, supported, or well resourced as if they work collaboratively. And some of my work over that time, predominantly has been in the Black Country, whether it be with Sturbridge District League, my work in West Bromwich, some of the work I've done with university, colleges, etc. So it was kind of creating a program that if you're a coach and you're from the Black Country, there's somewhere where you can go to be connected. So from that, what I kind of did was with the existing network I work with, whether it be students, whether it be grassroots coaches, came up with an offer, and an offer that coaches can have some new ideas or support. B, that could be on their own, it could be as a team of coaches, or it could be within its club on its own, or it could be, as CPD or events together, so learning together. And in the past, people might have heard me call this coach shares, where people come together and talk about a theme or a topic which on their own might be a problem to them, but collaborative together, they leave with some really good examples of best practice and sharing. So Black Country Coaches Club is kind of the new body of coach support, really. And in the absence of, formal qualifications, which at the moment a lot of things are digital, is a body to do that. Now there is, things cost money, so there's the small costs to things, but it's not massive. What we'll do is we'll put in the chat here the link to the offer, and if you're not a member of the Coaches Club, how you can do that. But essentially, if you think for 45 quid a year, you can have myself come to your session, help you with something that you need help with, attend 6 CPD events, and get digital shares as well. So if you think of that over 12 months, it's about 3-4 quid a month, something like that. I'm also want to launch tonight as an offer for young coaches. So if you're a young coach under the age of 21, you can join Black Country Coaches Club for 20 quid for the year. And that means you get that same support as an individual would. Aaron, just as an example, you're in a club and I help your club. How have you seen that offer develop and grow before lockdown happened?
Well, actually, Russ, I was just going to ask you about that. So you've given us a great overview of what the offering is, but more specifically, what are coaches asking about? Where are they looking for support, and how are you linking with them to help them?
Yeah. So with the clubs I work with, it's quite an interesting mix, really. One thing that I tend to find a lot of coaches asking for is kind of the technical, tactical parts of the game. However, when I normally get there, sometimes it's a bit more about the understanding of young people. So communication, um, how behaviour is really important, coaching styles are kind of the underpinningness to getting the message across then of understanding some technical, tactical stuff. I think that's kind of been a consistent theme. But then merged with that is a lot of coaches may have done some formal education 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or more years ago. Could be their FA level one as an example, but maybe not done anything since. And obviously their players have got older and formats of the game have changed, their needs have changed. So sometimes, the merging of understanding children to teenagers is a key bit, plus game formats and formations and how you could play. So a good example would be at the age of 10, children will change from 7v7 to 9v9, and that's the next step below 11v11. So how does that look like? What are the physical demands? What are actually the psychological constraints of that? And do you factor that into your trainings? And do you organise, plan with those things in mind, really? So to answer your question in a nutshell, Aaron, a little bit of technical, tactical. However, when it boils down to it, most of the work I'm kind of doing is those understanding young people, how you communicate, get your message across to help yourself learn.
Okay, so if I reflect back on when I first met you, I think I was one of those coaches that was just looking for the playbook, and I think it was quite nice that you opened my eyes to how you connect and how you coach the player. I think at our club we've got a range. So, is there anything in particular that you would maybe be able to share with the newer coaches, those coaches that are coming in at under sevens, under eights, that have had nobody to show them what coaching is all about and how it's different to playing?
Yeah, you raise a good point. So we've kind of gone from March through to now with no formal recognised FA coach education program. And you're right, you make a good point that, the playbook or give me a load of practices will solve the problem. And kind of there's some things I've helped out with the younger age group. So with one club in particular has kind of been how well do you know your players? So things like, do they do another sport? Or do you know when their birthday is? And coaches often question me of why is that relevant? And I kind of go, well, let's say for an example, your under sevens player was born in August. They're nearly 10 months younger than some of your teammates who were born in September. So the difference of what they may have had in a development journey or exposure, it's a sixth more of life really than the other ones. So a constant message I kind of get is understanding players and getting to know them, but also how 6, 7, 8 year olds behave. So how can you make things like a game rather than a drill? Because a lot of coaches kind of go with what they know. So what I kind of mean by that is when they used to play or were at school or were in a team, they only did drills, running around laps or doggies meaning running back and forth, things in a line. They kind of only know that because that's only what they've ever been exposed to. So helping especially new coaches with the understanding of, yes, they're children, and if you make things like a game, they'll kind of understand it better. So a way to win, is it against someone? Are there some problems to solve along the way? Are there teammates you can help or who can help you? Is there some attacking and some defending? And a good real example to summarise that might be the game of Bulldog is a game, but also has constraints aligned to football. There's a way to attack, there's a way to defend, you have to work as a team, but it's a really good warm-up game. and your kids would enjoy it and probably will listen to you more. So how you understand children and making the practices game related, not drill related, will probably really help their measures and outcomes of what they get from training.
Ross, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the broader offering of Black Country Coaches Club, and in particular the CPD events that will be run through the year. What
Yeah.
sort of events can we look forward to being invited to?
So COVID proposed. So the deal is 6 events per year where coaches can come together, share similar issues aligned around a theme. So a good example will be in March, I think on the CPD list will be managing behaviour. So a big constant theme I've found over many years is my kids don't listen to me. They play about. None of them take it seriously. Some kids are naughty, etc., etc. Okay, and this is duly down to the fact that A, they're kids, and B, sometimes coaches don't have any training around behaviour or understanding what it is. Sometimes behaviour might be from home, could be a home thing, could be a school thing, could be a release. It could be the best part of their week. But it's how to curtail and use that in a positive way rather than using it in a negative way. So, some top tips: understanding behaviour, aligning it to coaches' situations and examples would kind of what the CPD event would be like. And what normally happens is at these things is that an under sevens coach from one team and an under sevens from another meet each other and they talk about the same problem. And they normally leave by going, "Do you know what? I'm really glad I'm not the only person with this problem." Great. I found out some new things. Plus, I now have a new coach mate or someone I can kind of associate these things with ongoingly into my football future. So that's kind of what a CPD event is about. And some of the topics are how to maximize training time. So rather than wait for the last kid to come and then start the warm up, how can you use your spaces, times, and shapes differently to mirror Sundays as match day? We'll be doing changing game formats. So changing from 5v5 to 7v7 to 9v9 to 11v11. We'll also be doing fitness through football. So preparing for the summer period rather than let's all run up a hill and have a tyre on our back or a parachute. How can we still do football related things, but still get fit in the meantime as well? And these kind of the themes that might not be on your formal courses, but they're really much of a need for coaches, either as new coaches, student coaches, or grassroots coaches.
Ross, have you been approached by any clubs to support you with the team environment or the club environment and how the club functions and runs? And is there anything in there that Black Country Coaches Club can support in that environment?
Yeah, so obviously within my career, football, predominantly working with football clubs and sport in my past environment, you don't just coach for 40 hours a week. So sometimes structure, sometimes new ideas, sometimes innovation or empowerment of others is part of the work back house. And an example with the club I'm working with at the minute, yes, there's some help and support for coaches, but also there's some help and support for club committee as well. And often club committee are coaches, so they understand. And it's sometimes just taking your head out the sand for the moment and thinking, why do we always do it like we always do? And I always remember a conversation with one club who said to me, how can I stop my coaches getting us fines for late paperwork or non-submission of a certain form, etc., etc. And my answer to that committee was, Do you want your coaches to be coaches, or do you want them to be secretaries? And the answer was, we want them to be coaches. And that's kind of where I said, so you're asking them to do both. Now, we're understanding coaching, it's hand in hand. But as volunteers, sometimes there's other people who are around who can do the paperwork stuff, and allow the coaches to do the coaching stuff. Now, a good example might be with you here, Aaron. So you have a coach who's a student who's pretty good at the coaching stuff through learning his stuff and doing his badges. Now, it just so happens that you're all right at the paperwork stuff. So working hand in hand with match those skills up, and you're seeing the benefits of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's some examples of club stuff. So, but yeah, there's a range of things. I suppose there's nothing off the shelf as an offer. It's kind of just, opening eyes to different ways of working.
Are you happy to move on, Russ, to the
Yeah.
FA?
Yeah, should we link it to the FA?
Yeah, so there's been an awful lot of change over the summer, and I'm not sure everybody knows what's happened with furloughing people and changes in funding. Could you give us an overview of what's happening with the regional FA teams, or the FA as a whole?
Yeah, well, let's talk about what people would know. So people know historically FA level 1, FA level 2 coaching courses. And those have been run for the last 20, 25 years by your county FA. So obviously ours in Black Country area is Birmingham County FA. So pre-COVID, the plan was always to update these qualifications anyway, and change a little bit of what was working within the structure that was changed in 2016. But in COVID, this has kind of fast-tracked a lot and changed. So the FA level 1, as example, that will now just be a digital only course from my latest understandings, and be re-offered out to coaches from spring, summer onwards next year. So no 4.5 days worth of content with first aid, safeguarding, and coach competencies and ideas linked to the England DNA. It will be a digital course which probably will combine those things. I'm not sure of the duration of that, but it will be a learn in your own time type thing, and probably have some checkpoints of competency. But I suppose the key bit is it will be digital only. And there's different, arguments of why that's the case. It could be a cost saver. It could be standardization, so everyone gets the same thing. It could be to aid the predominant volunteer workforce who are strapped on time. But it's a big change, really. And I think some of the feedback I've got, especially from coaches who've done courses in the past or linked to things with other people, is the collaboration and community of learning you get from the courses that won't be there anymore. And a good way to summarize that is, for 5 years in the kind of Stairbridge League area, we've purposely done this for new coaches so that they meet each other. So A, they get to know each other. B, they know a name rather than a rival. And it's kind of an ongoing, lasting relationship. And we've found a lot of difference between those who have done it together against those who haven't. So those sideline, touchline behaviours, plus collaboration and making their own community of practice, really. So that's level 1, Aaron. It will be a digital only course from spring, summer onwards. I don't know what your views on that would be. Obviously, as someone who's gone for the previous program.
I tend to think it's a bit of a crying shame, to be honest, because I think the term coaching with friends, as opposed to coaching against an opposition, is something that's going to be massively lost. But that might just link back, Russ, to the gaps that Black Country Coaching Club is trying to bridge, if you like. And
yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the rationale of the offer, really, because there won't be any face-to-face offer for most coaches. That's kind of why I came up with the program. and the concept and the ideas really to help that in this period of time now, and obviously till you know it's needed really, and that's the bit filling that gap. We're not looking to replace the FA's digital content. We want to complement that. So if a new coach is doing the new FA level one, and don't get me wrong here, the Playmakers Award has been quite successful, which is kind of a 6-hour online how to organise and have safe, fun football at things like Wildcat Centres, things like Turn Up and Play. Then that's been really good, because if I'm just giving up 2 hours a week for fun, that's fine. But when I'm in charge of children in 5 hours a week, who actually parents are paying and want to see some sort of development and learning, it's a different concept to just organised fun that might be a turn up and play. So some of the digital stuff is really good, but we're not looking to take away from that. We want to complement that with the offer or the scaffolding around that moving forward.
Yeah.
Level 2, Aaron, shall I tell you what that's going to look like?
Yeah.
So from my understanding, the FA Level 2 will no longer exist. It will be renamed and rebadged up as the UEFA C Award. And the UEFA C Award, from my understanding, will be part digital and part coach developer or course led. And what I mean by coach developer is anyone who's done the FA Level 2 within the past 5 years, you get one of your tutors or course coach developers to see you in your workplace twice. So to watch you actually coach your kids in your session, in your venue, which I think is one of the real strengths to actually what's happened over the last 4 or 5 years, because it just gives real credibility and sees the bare bones of actually your own development as a coach, and the coach who's on the program to develop their philosophy around that and their coach competencies. So a visit mid-course and a visit end course. So I still believe that will be part of the new course, which is great, because that was probably one of the strengths of it really. But then it will take away some of the face-to-face learning, the collaboration opportunities with a digital offer as part of the course. Now, Aaron, I think you did the first FA Level 2 of Birmingham County FA area. So if that were to be replaced with a digital course, you obviously do digital courses within your work, in your working life. What would you think would have been the differences, or do you think that would have changed your journey?
Yeah, I do. I absolutely think taking away the contact, not necessarily with the tutor, because I do think that's you get great feedback, both positive and constructive. But I think the biggest shame is you miss the interaction with 20 odd other coaches. And on both my level 1 and level 2, you see things in them that you don't necessarily see in the tutor. And you can relate to different people, different experiences. And you just get those nuggets that you steal, as all good coaches do. So I think it's even more important that with the standardization that the FA are bringing in, there's some sort of forum or some sort of group, or that coaches from different teams and different clubs can then come together and share, which is why I think it's vital that we do have some events that bring all these people together to share from each other.
Well, the third part of the FA's new offer, which he segued in quite well to there, is they've had a reshuffle from what I understand. So every county used to have a county coach developer. That's not the case anymore. So our guy was called Steve Pritchard. Now they're in regions, so northeast, southwest, and I believe that we fit into the west side of that area. And there's a designated developer for inclusion. So inclusion would be disability, BAME, so Black, Asian, minority ethnic groups. There would be an officer for the female game and then a general officer to oversee the whole offer for all coaches. And I think as part of their job is to offer county-wide events or region-wide events, which could be digital, which could be large events linked to kind of the FA's national program. And again, Black Country Coaches Club doesn't want to replicate that; it wants to complement that. So we're really focusing on a small part of the West Midlands, whereas that would be a whole offer to the Midlands there. So there would be still something, but obviously we don't know what that looks like as yet.
Yeah, I think for me, Russ, that's great. Me interacting with a coach from the far side of Birmingham, you get those learning experiences. But I think what I think I would miss if I was a new coach coming into the West Midlands is learning and sharing things with a coach that I'm going to meet every other Saturday or every other Sunday.
Yeah,
I think it just sets the culture of the whole league, and it makes it a much more friendly environment. What are your thoughts?
I think the community of practice is everything, isn't it? Really, people who are peers who are doing similar things to you, so sharing and caring, their problems that often others have the solutions to, or advice or experience that could be used as part of their own self-solving. I think that's really valuable. And not that this is, an academic podcast by any means or thought, but there's lots of readings and research out there by two researchers called Wagner and Trainer about the power of a community of practice. And I look back on a lot of the work that I've done in 20 years, and I've not really done a lot of it in isolation. I've always had either a mentor or other people around me, people who I might have met on those courses years ago, who are still friends. I think that's kind of the power here. That's the magic, the community of practice.
I've got a bit of a different question, Ross. I've heard of this, but it's around mental well-being and mental health. I've got to admit, I don't know a great deal about it. Are the FA doing something around mental health at the moment?
So they have the program Heads Up, I think, with Prince William as the ambassador. It's more of an awareness piece from my understanding. But a great awareness piece. It was the sponsor of the FA Cup. There was various programs on the BBC, and I think it's an agenda item for the FA. But I don't think they're the experts. There are multiple organisations and charities out there who are doing this sort of work day to day. So a good example would be for you, Mind, as a nationwide charity. They have their own learnings, resources, advice lines that link to the volunteer sector anyway. And Dudley Mind, as an example, are national award winners for some of the work that they do in and around Dudley through volunteers. And it's not just with football; it could be with volunteers in schools or uniformed groups, etc. So I think it's an FA agenda. However, they're not the experts, and I suppose to link this forward a little bit, something I shared as a digital share last week, folks, was UK Coaching. So UK Coaching, if you don't know who they are, they're the national governing body, shall we say, for coaching. And they've done a collaboration with Mind for what's called the coaching. Well, it's a qualification of awareness of mental health in sport. So COVID, as an example, brings us to a really, well, is it the pandemic, or is the pandemic to come of actually problems it's caused? And the understanding of mental well-being is really heightened for, the absences of school, worries about work, illnesses, etc., has been a big thing that our generation of coaches have never really come across. And this section of where we are at in our timeline really, some education aids that. And the UK Coaching Award covers things like signs, triggers, things you can see, your own well-being, how talking helps, as a bit of a toolkit and top tips for those working with young people, especially in coaching. I did the award. Uh, some online learning because I think, you know what, I'll just press skip or play a video and just make a cup of tea or whatever. And I think we've all done that. But you know what? I quite enjoyed it because it made me reflect, not just as a coach or a coach developer, it also made me reflect with my own children of what actually are the things that I can't see, but I might be able to find out. You've got teenagers, Aaron. What type of things have you kind of come across during this period of well-being for either A, your family, or B, yourself?
Well, this is the reason I actually brought it up. Actually, so I've got a teenage boy who I coach, and I've got a younger daughter, a bit of an age gap, and actually the mental well-being and the way it's affected them, especially over the spring lockdown, really was quite shocking, if I'm absolutely honest.
Yeah.
And so I was sort of wondering, what are the sort of things we as coaches should be looking for? What should we be looking out for when we do get our kids back after this lockdown?
Yeah, yeah. Well, reflecting back on the spring period, similar with me. My daughter, luckily, no bother. My son was hard because you take away routine, you take away connection, you take away those social groups, and at the minute, a good example. And there'll be lots of coaches listening who've had this now. My son's on a quarantine because someone at his school had a positive COVID test. So for near on 10 days of his school life, he's self isolating, which has its own effects. And I think to link back to your question, what things could we look for and what can we do about it is talk is the biggest thing. Talk about what your worries at the moment. And it might be child based questions, about are you upset about anything? How do you feel? Explain or write or, just having those conversations will really help. The other thing that really helps is routine. So even if you are quarantining, what can you still get up at the same time and not just the lying that becomes a 2 week lying? Bedtimes, getting good sleep really helps. Diet, thinking about what good foods there are compared with junk foods that don't make you feel great anyway. And you can never beat exercise. Exercise obviously has hormone releases, stress, it kind of dwindles that down. There's lots of benefits of exercise. But what is exercise? Because not everyone's going to do Joe Wicks. Not everyone's going to go for a run on their own or go on a bike ride. So can exercise be a fun thing, not a chore? Is key, and we found that out massively in lockdown one. We tried to get the kids to do Joe Wicks every day, which I presume a lot of people did, and kind of fell off the hurdle after 2 or 3 goes. Then me and my wife just ended up doing it. But can it be fun? So, okay, I'll give you a good example. So in my example here with my own son, we do YouTube videos of boxing and wrestling. Now, he thinks that's great, that's fun, and he gets his chance to hit his dad. But it's actually good exercise, and I do it because I know it's good for him, and actually it gets me to do it with him. So back to the community of practice, it helps out. If you do it on my own, I'm probably not going to do it again. So if I do it with someone, that will help the social side. Could be walks, could be, I'll tell you what, let's go to the park and play football. Now, obviously, there's constraints about if you're self-isolating or not, but whilst kids aren't playing football, how can you still get football at the park? Be confident in what you do with your kids. And I suppose the underlying bit beneath this is, for all those who might have all these great things that they're doing, there's a lot of kids who don't have any of that. And then come December the 3rd, you're going to get them back at your sessions. So being prepared for that's really important in this COVID period as a coach. You might have done a lot of stuff with your players and what you can control, but I'm dead sure there's going to be loads of kids who might not have been at school for whatever reasons. They've been on an Xbox for 7 hours a day or up late night watching YouTube or whatever. These digital rage or, Xbox crashes, they're coming to your coaching. So that empathy, that connection, talking to young people, making them feel safe, belong, lowering anxiousness, making it fun will be really important once we get back out, hopefully out there in December.
I couldn't agree more with you, Russ. I think from my experience, from watching the boys play prior to lockdown and then getting them back afterwards, there was obviously the fitness that wasn't there. But I think more importantly was their social skills. I couldn't quite believe how insular they were becoming and how they didn't communicate to each other. And it just shows that actually there's an awful lot going on behind what you can see on the surface, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, a good example is, you can communicate in many ways, yeah. But in today's society, a text, a WhatsApp, Snapchat, whatever, it's non-verbal. It's all digital communication. Not a lot of people like using webcams and talking on Zoom and stuff like that. But these are all things that actually are going to come back to you and come back to these young people when they're thrown back into a school environment with another 400 kids, or back at training where they've only ever had conversations about Fortnite. And it's often been a win and take all conversation or banter. So it's a hard one to broach. And I think the Rome wasn't built in a day approach, gently, step by step, is the key. Because if you're back in December and you're kind of thinking that you want to hit the ground running, then maybe think again. Think, how are you? If your first question is, how are you? You're probably starting at the right place. If your first question is, have you kept fit? Maybe that's the wrong place to start. Yeah. And that understanding will be key. And effectively, just get them to enjoy themselves, to get back into that period, because them seeing each other, having interaction with other adults and other teenagers or children will kind of be the medicine, really. Added in some physical activity, and then that's double medicine dose. If they can make that a habit with other people, with the social side, I think that will really help navigate through, a really tricky time. But it's down to us as coaches to have some education on that, because I don't think ever in any coach course you've ever done, Aaron, that you've ever had any training on. Not being your level 1, that's not being in your level 2. So having some education around well-being is key, and that that UK coaching course is key to that. Really, just top tips of talk to them. Don't expect too much. Use exercises as the therapy, as the diagnosis to help out will be key. And one thing I've not spoke about, which is key here, I was really reflective on this, that over the first lockdown period, me and my wife probably had the TV on every day telling us death's here and catching it here. For me, that was worrying. So God knows what it did to my kids. So in this lockdown 2.0, I've been really mindful of how much media we have on. And that's really helped my mindset, especially. So if it's helped me, I'm presuming it's helped the kids.
I have no idea what else to ask you, Russ, at the minute.
No, that's fine. I think ultimately, COVID is giving us its problems, but it's also given us things that we are thankful for. Um, Thankful that we've probably spent more time with our families, and thankful when football's on, isn't it? I don't know about you, Aaron, but those first couple of weeks you had back with your kids, I bet you loved it.
Just being outside with them, yeah, just watching them laugh and play and just listening to them. That was medicine in itself. And I know they're raring to get back to it. I think picking up on the point that you said earlier about the self-isolation, I think that's disrupting the kids as well because they're missing their mates, aren't they? So just getting them back.
We found this time. So in the first period, school wasn't very good. And what I mean by very good, it was he's allowed a website to crack on, do some home learning. Yeah, didn't really work. Whereas we're 3 or 4 days into this one, he's had a phone call already from a teacher. He's had direct correspondence to see how they are and link in some things that's actually going on in the world. So there's been more community or more connection. That's the thing that effectively probably is better because we're more prepared. And us as coaching, and back to the theme of why we're here, can we be prepared as coaches? Even if you Google things to help well-being of children or teenagers, whoever you work with, you're going to be better prepared than if you are doing nothing. That course, that course, UK coaching, mental health and well-being in sport, that's the grade A of this. But even if you Google it, that's still a C. You're still going to get some tips or something, and start off by asking that question: how are you? Rather than, have you been training? Have you kept fit? Will be a really big segue into hopefully reintegration, and looking forward to a future of no more 2 meter rule as spectators, or track and trace of on the sideline and all the rest of the stuff. Spray the ball, no throw-ins and all that sort of stuff that hopefully we can move on from. So I think that brings us together for a really kind of good ending point for our first podcast. Thank you for asking some good questions, Aaron, to prompts. To summarise, guys, Black Country Coaches Club is there for any coach who might be a student, might be a grassroots coach, could be you're looking for some ideas, just someone to talk to, or to share and collaborate together, really. There's various offers to suit all, and we'll make sure that there's a post and a link within here. I reviewed the FA courses and what the changes are, what that will look like. And then, COVID, be aware of well-being and prepare yourself a little bit for December, even if that's, just reaching out, finding out how people are, keeping connected during the period. I know some coaches doing quizzes or questions. Getting to know your players will really help that reintegration. Aaron, I thank you for your time. It's been much appreciated.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Russ.
And thank you very much to BRM Solutions, who are our partner within this podcast series, who've been helping out with the digital and technology side of our podcasts. Thank you.